Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing great. I hope everyone is having a great weekend, a great long weekend for those of you whose weekends are a little longer with the extra day. Mine is, and I'm looking forward to it. So in today's video, I want to talk about some fragrances from the house of Louis Vuitton, not a fragrance house that I've spoken too much about on the channel, even though I did mention Imagination in one of my videos during the summer, and I also have a video on Ombre Nomade, the Rose Oud fragrance. That never really translated to a full bottle, but I did enjoy wearing the sample, and I did go through that entire decant that I spoke about in that video. So today I want to talk about 4 fragrances from the house. 2 here are full bottles, the other 2 are official samples. And as you guys know, the house of Louis Vuitton is obviously a high-end designer luxury house. They're known for their handbags, their leather goods. They started out making luggage, I believe, and then at some point they went into the world of fragrance, as other high-end designer lines have. They definitely don't have the history that the House of Chanel has. They don't have the history that the House of Guerlain has. And so they're definitely newer in the world of fragrances. But as you guys also know, they've definitely gotten a ton of buzz, with fragrances like Ombre Nomade being super hyped. Imagination might be even more hyped than Ombre Nomade. Pacific Chill gets talked about a lot. So of today's fragrances, I think that 1 or 2 of them are in that hyped sort of category, maybe the other 2 not as hyped. So let's start with a fragrance that I do think has some buzz behind it. And this is an official sample of Fleur du Désert, Fleur of the Desert. And if I'm not mistaken, this comes in a darker bottle. Some of the bottles are the clear light bottles, but I think this one comes either in a, even the sample is a bit dark. I think it comes in a smoky purple, smoky dark gray. Maybe not as dark as the bottle that Ombre Nomade comes in. So I've had this on skin a few times. I've gotten to know the fragrance, and I've gone back and forth with what I think about this. I would call this a big fragrance. This has a lot of ambroxan, and the few times that I wore it, I was around other people and they commented on what I smelled like. They asked what I was wearing. I think they enjoyed it, unless they were lying to me. So this opens very floral and very sweet, and also very synthetic. So the first few times that I sprayed this, I really picked up on that synthetic sort of aspect of the fragrance, and I thought, oh, this is in the category of fragrances that are just syrupy and thick and synthetic. And as it dries down, it does change a little bit, but the opening is definitely floral and sweet, and it's synthetic, and I see purple. I don't know if that's the power of suggestion, because I think the bottle looks like a smoky dark purple color, but I feel like I see purple. It reminded me, after the second time that I wore this, I was thinking something syrupy, like a grape syrupy drink, like a grape syrupy soda. Maybe like the grape flavored bubblegum, something like that, something syrupy and grape flavored. I'm not saying that it smells like grapes, but for some reason, the combination of the florals in here with the sweetness in the opening, because it has a synthetic quality to it, I guess there are a lot of synthetics in here. That's sort of the image that I get when I smell this in the opening. In terms of the florals, there's rose, there's jasmine, and there's orange blossom. And I feel like I can pick up the orange blossom. The orange blossom in here reminds me a little bit, because there's sweetness in the opening, it reminds me a little bit of one of the fragrances from Atelier Matière. And I will put down below in the video description the name of that fragrance, because I am blanking, but I think Nerolia or Neroli Nasamba, something like that. The sweetness and that orange blossom sort of combo in the opening of that fragrance reminds me a little bit of the orange blossom that I'm getting here. There's also honey in here. And of course there's oud, Assam oud. And I think, although I'm not an expert in oud fragrances, I think the oud smells a little bit synthetic in here. I'm not sure if Louis Vuitton says that it's real oud or synthetic oud. And I think that a lot of fragrances do have synthetic oud, so that's fine. But overall, it just smells very synthetic and floral and sweet. But there is definitely something captivating about the fragrance. And like I said, the florals in here, the rose, the jasmine, and the orange blossom, to me come off sort of as one, although I do pick up the orange blossom and maybe something a little bit rosy, but I'm not getting jasmine as a predominant floral in here. And like I said, in the dry down, it does get a little less sweet. It gets a little dusty. It's still a floral. You have the honey in there. You have cinnamon, but it's not an overdose of cinnamon. And you have the oud that is coming off like a Western, completely, totally wearable oud that's coming off more like a woody backdrop for the fragrance. And it's nice in the dry down. It's nicer in the dry down, but I would still say that it retains sort of that synthetic nature and aspect to it. Now, I get that fragrances have synthetics. I'm not saying that other fragrances that I love are all natural. It's just that this one, to me, the synthetic aspect of it is obvious. This one in the dry down, I can appreciate it a little more than in the opening. Now, this one is quite expensive, as are all the fragrances from Louis Vuitton. The 100 ml of this one is more expensive than the 100 ml in some of the fragrances that are in the lighter bottles. The 100 ml is $440 without tax, and the 200 ml is $610 without tax. So that's really expensive. And in my mind, I have to consider what I'm paying to smell like this. I have to consider the price. So if this shows up at a discounter, hypothetically tomorrow for $99, then maybe I would say, I'll pick up a bottle. I like the dry down. It's on my skin forever. I showered and could not get rid of the dry down of this fragrance. It does smell nice in the dry down, but it is very, very expensive. So I'm not sure that I would spend that kind of money on this fragrance. It's a fragrance that's composed and made in a way that's reminding me of other fragrances that have been released recently, like Guerlain's Ambre Samar, which is a rich, thick sort of amber fragrance with spices, and it's really synthetic smelling to me. It's similar to the way Guerlain's Oud Nude is made. I like that fragrance. I almost purchased a full bottle. In the opening, you get that sort of synthetic aspect as well. As it dries down, I do like it more. I like it more than this, I will say. So if I go for something in that sort of category, I think that I would spend my money on Oud Nude. So that's my take on this one. Let me know if you guys agree. So next, let's talk about two fragrances that I have full bottles of. This is Apogée, and this one is Jour Se Lève. And these are tester bottles. They came without caps. I got them for really, really great prices from the same seller. She was moving out of town and she was selling off some fragrances, and she was really great about assuring me where the fragrances came from. And like I said, they're testers and I'm totally fine with it. And the price was so great that rather than waste time getting samples, which is sometimes such a hassle and I have no patience for, I just purchased both bottles and I'm happy with the purchase. So Apogée was released in 2016. Fleur du Désert was released in 2022. And the perfumer behind all of the fragrances in the house is Jacques Cavalier. And I think he has a pretty extensive resume and he's a respected perfumer. So let's go ahead and spray Apogée. I did wear this as my scent of the day. I like the sprayers. It disperses a nice amount of liquid with each spray. It's sort of concentrated in how it delivers the perfume. Some sprayers I feel are a little bit too dispersive. I like these. And I like the packaging of these, by the way. It's a simplistic sort of design, and it's a simplicity that I appreciate. I like simple, even though these don't have caps. The caps, I'm pretty sure, are magnetic. So I enjoy Apogée. This fragrance, in my mind, is all about Lily of the Valley, even though there are other florals in here. It's fresh, yes, it's floral, but there's something sort of green and dewy about the florals. There's something about the freshness and the way that it interplays with the florals in here that makes it quite unisex, in my opinion. The florals are not heady. It's not a bouquet of flowers. It's sort of a floral aspect that I think is dominated by the Lily of the Valley, which I think is a quite unisex, a floral note in fragrance. So it comes off fresh and it comes off clean. And in addition to the Lily of the Valley in here, there's magnolia, there's jasmine, there's rose. But like I said, it's not a heady bouquet of flowers. It's subdued, it comes off soft, it comes off watery. And to me, the Lily of the Valley is prominent. So there's a lot of green in here because I think that Lily of the Valley has this sort of natural white petal green aspect to it. The florals in here I see as white petals. And I feel like the fragrance has a hint of something a little bit fruity as well, even though there's no fruit listed in the note breakdown. So as I was smelling this, I wore this a few times and I wore it today. As I was smelling this, I was trying to pinpoint what kind of fruit I'm getting in here. And I'm picking up something that reminds me of pineapple, like a juicy pineapple. And I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it's quite lovely. And it's part of this floral Lily of the Valley, fresh, green, dewy, watery, sort of clean scent profile. And it reminds me of something in the world of Byredo's Bal d'Afrique, which is a fragrance that I like. It's been around for a very, very long time. I'm not saying that this one smells like Bal d'Afrique. It reminds me of that kind of fragrance. A fragrance that has florals, a freshness, a sort of green aspect, a clean scent profile that's super unisex. And that one has been around for a long time and it has a lot of fans. I actually just bought a decant of Bal d'Afrique. For whatever reason, I feel like I want that in my collection. I'm not sure why, but this one is in that sort of category in my mind. You guys can let me know if you agree. And let me know if you think that Apogée is all about the Lily of the Valley. I think it is. And I think that when it dries down, it's less about the florals that you might get in the opening, and it's more about the green. So I think the green, dewy, watery aspects outweigh the floral aspects. And I think that you get the woody components that come through. I think there's sandalwood in here, and there's another wood note as well. So the woody components is a backdrop in the dry down. I think that it's less floral in the dry down. It's not as bright in the dry down, but it's nonetheless a clean scent profile. And I think it retains that dewy green aspect. So I do like this one. I think it smells really nice. I don't think it's the most unique fragrance that I've smelled, but it is nonetheless nice. And for what I paid for the bottle, I think that it's a great fragrance. It's something that I think of wearing after a shower. It's something that I might want to wear when it's really hot, although I did purchase this after the heat here in New York. So it's not something that I had over the summer. So I don't think that it's anything groundbreaking. I do have other Lily of the Valley fragrances. I have the one from Penhaligon's, which I really enjoy, but this one is nice. It's a pretty fragrance. I like the green, dewy aspect to it. So that's Apogée. And next we have Jour Se Lève, which is also in the clear bottle. This is also a tester without the cap. And this one is a little bit different than Apogée. So this one is more musky, it's brighter, it's more citrusy, it's more uplifting. I feel like Apogée has a little bit more of a melancholic sort of feel to the fragrance. This one is more sunshine. This one is brighter. This one has floral components. I think there's peony in here, and it also has a mandarin that comes off so juicy. I almost feel like you're squeezing the mandarin, you're squeezing the citrus, and you get a spray of citrus. It's very juicy. There's this juicy aspect to the fragrance. So while I get the floral, you have the peony, you have the jasmine in here, you have osmanthus as well, but I don't pick up too much of the osmanthus, but what I do pick up is a hint of the black currant. I love black currant in fragrance, and I pick it up in here. And it sort of contrasts perfectly with this juicy mandarin and, like I said, the floral components in here. And all of this is sort of delivered in a musky way. The fragrance is musky, and it also has a clean scent profile, but it's definitely a little bit more feminine leaning, I think, than Apogée. I find Apogée, even though it's floral with the lily of the valley and the other florals in there, this one is a little bit more floral, I would say. It's a little bit more feminine, and it's also clean and musky, and it's enjoyable. It's a pretty fragrance. And I like the black currant that sort of peeks through. It gives a little bit of sweetness, but it's very particular. There's a little bit of tartness to it as well. So I enjoy black currant in fragrance, and I pick it up in here. It plays nicely with the juicy citrus mandarin and with the florals, and I think it's musky. I also think that this one, like Apogée, is not groundbreaking, and I like Apogée more than I like this one. This one to me smells very, very ordinary. It's nice, it's pretty. There's nothing that's not pretty about the fragrance, and it smells a little bit ordinary. So while I have a bottle of it, and while I do think that it smells nice, I just don't think it smells like anything special that would make me go and buy a full bottle of this, which the 100 ml, I think, is in the neighborhood of $350. I'm not sure. Like I said, the darker bottles are more expensive, so I'm not sure what the price of this one would be, but they're expensive. And if I had to spend the money on this, I would go and buy a Celine fragrance. And I think if I had to say overall, just a little bit of criticism here, I think that the House of Louis Vuitton, in my opinion, from what I've gotten my nose on, I think that the fragrances lack that uniqueness. Like Celine fragrances, I feel like they have that unique sort of irisy, orris butter component to them that runs through the house. Maybe not all of them. And I'm not saying that I love all of them, and I'm not saying that they're all worth $350 and above. I'm not saying that. But there is something that is unique. They've defined their house. They've defined their fragrances. And I do like the DNA of Celine fragrances. I like Chanel fragrances. I feel like they're unique. But this one is nice. I'm not trying to knock the fragrances. I know a lot of people love a lot of these fragrances. This one does smell nice. I just don't think it's worth the money. So that's Jour Se Lève. And then the last one is an official sample of Spell on You. I think this one is popular as well. And this one I feel like I don't know as well as the other ones. I sprayed this a few times, so this is just an early impression of this fragrance. Okay, so this one opens very bright, and now that I'm getting my nose on it again, I don't like the opening of this fragrance. It reminds me of something bright and almost juvenile, like Delina by Parfums de Marly, something that has like some sort of rhubarb note or something fruity and bright and musky. And then minutes later, I do start to appreciate it, because minutes later I get iris, and there's rose in here as well, and I get something almost a little bit lipsticky, either coming from the iris or maybe it's a combination of the rose and the iris. And I thought, ooh, I like that. I love iris. And I like iris that goes lipsticky. I like iris that's rooty. I think I like all different and all forms of iris. And I picked it up in here minutes after this sort of off-putting opening. and I start to get some components that I can appreciate. And like I said, I get something a little bit powdery, a little bit lipsticky from the iris. The fragrance comes off subdued, it comes off soft, it comes off a little bit powdery. Yeah, it's musky. It's definitely a musky fragrance. There's musk in here, and in addition to the rose and the iris, there's also jasmine, and there's a note of Egyptian acacia. And so the floral aspects definitely have hints of green. You get green in here, and it's not creamy. It's a little bit more powdery, but at the same time, it's really a musky fragrance, I would say. And it comes off kind of clean. So I feel like a lot of these are sort of in the fresh, clean category with some differences. Some are a little bit more green, some are a little more unisex. This one is less floral than Le Jour Se Lève. The florals are definitely softer and subdued, and I'm getting a little bit of the rose actually as I'm getting my nose on the blotter. The rose is peeking through, but the rose is soft and powdery, and the iris is a big player in here, I think. You guys let me know if you're familiar with this one. I think the iris is a big player. I think the musk is what defines the fragrance. So in the end, it's soft, floral, fresh, musky, and it's pleasant. But I'm going to say again, like Le Jour Se Lève, I feel like it's nothing unique. There's nothing unique that defines them. Apogée is a little bit more unique. Fleur du Désert is definitely more unique. I will say that. It is more unique. But this one, and Le Jour Se Lève, I think, are less unique than Apogée and Fleur du Désert of the ones that we're talking about today. So that's my take on these 4 fragrances. I guess all of them are florals, and one of them has oud and is in the darker bottle. And I enjoy Apogée, I think, the most. I enjoy it the most. In the dry down, it gets a little dark, even though it's green and there's something dewy about it, and I do call it a fresh fragrance with a prominent lily of the valley aspect. I think in the dry down, the woods really come into play. That's what I'm getting on skin here as it dried down. I like this one. I do like Apogée, so I think I'm going to enjoy this. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of these fragrances, if you agree or disagree with my take. And as always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.